Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is your tropical update for June 30th. We're currently watching Tropical Depression 3 located over the Bay of Campeche, making its way into Mexico at the moment, bringing much flooding to the area, as well as Category 4 major Hurricane Beryl, making its way towards the Lesser Antilles, where it'll then move on south or near Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, perhaps the Yucatan Peninsula. We're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, and then another investigative system, Invest 96L, behind that one. We have a lot to talk about. I'll try to keep this as condensed as possible. As we can see here, there we go. Finally, it's going to click. We do have a moderate risk of rainfall concerns due to Tropical Depression 3 over central Mexico, in particular, the states of Querétaro, Guanajuato, and San Luis Patos. So that's what we're watching at the moment. We'll talk more in depth about that here shortly. We're also watching the islands of St. Vincent, the Grenadine Islands, as well as Grenada for extreme impacts due to wind, as well as rainfall and storm surge due to Hurricane Beryl. And as we're watching Beryl, those effects are going to extend to St. Lucia, Barbados, and Trinidad. And Tobago is also on the list of places that need to be watching out, as well as Martinique and Dominica for potential tropical storm force impacts in the near term. In the far term, we turn our eyes towards the Greater Antilles, southern Hispaniola, in particular, Haiti, the Dominican Republic. Those areas are now under a tropical storm watch. The island of Jamaica really needs to be watching this closely, as well as southern portions of Cuba, the Cayman Islands, and perhaps later on the Yucatan Peninsula. Let's get into first talking about Tropical Depression 3. Here's 3. It looks, like a tropical depression, not hugely organized, but certainly something to consider. We're currently looking at flooding concerns 4 to 8 inches, isolated to 15. Winds probably only going to peak around 40 miles an hour. That would be a tropical storm. And so this thing may get named. The National Hurricane Center calling for it to get named as it makes landfall overnight tonight. Tropical storm warning in effect from Cabo Rojo to Puerto Veracruz in Mexico. Again, the main concern with this one is flooding. As you can see on this next slide here, the flooding is the main concern. As I mentioned, Guanajuato, can't read from this smaller font, needs to be watching out, as well as the northern portions of the state of Veracruz, as well as Puebla. So again, we need to be watching the rainfall concerns here. Again, this area has already, even the areas in green, to be honest, need to be watching this as far north as Nuevo Leon, because this area of Mexico has been battered by storm after storm this year. Of course, they're used to it, but again, Alberto hit the area earlier this year, as well as another invest in now Tropical Depression 3, which might become Tropical Storm Chris before things are all said and done. Let's move on to the main event. We have Category 4 Major Hurricane Beryl making its way towards the islands. We see Barbados up in the screen. Look at 13 degrees north, and just outside of the little red dot of convection there at the end of the loop, that's where the island of Barbados is. It's going to go south of Barbados and generally head again towards St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Grenada. As you can see, the watch warning board is lit up pretty well at the moment. Again, those tropical alerts for the Lesser Antilles, southwestern Hispaniola, Jamaica, southern Cuba, Belize, the Yucatan Peninsula, and the Mexican and Texas coastlines now, as this storm is expected to potentially reach those coasts within 7 days. Again, the tropical alerts go out to 7 days, along with the impact map I showed you at the beginning of this video. We're also watching major hurricane impacts potential, as I've mentioned multiple times now, and I do want to hammer this home because this is a big deal. St. Vincent in the Grenadine Islands and Grenada in the near term. In the far term, we may see major hurricane impacts to the island of Jamaica. And so I have now upgraded them to a major hurricane alert. Again, that means significant impacts on this scale. That's the pink and purple of things. Again, storm surge only in the red category. That's a high risk, 6 to 9 feet of storm surge, which is still significant and on par with the intense system. So we certainly need to be watching that. Hurricane warnings in effect for Barbados, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada, and Tobago. And again, I think I missaid that earlier. Tobago's the one that needs to be watching this more so than Trinidad. Trinidad and Dominica on tropical storm watches. In the next place after the Lesser Antilles, Martinique under a tropical storm warning. The next place after all those islands that needs to be watching this is Hispaniola, and now a tropical storm watch in effect from Puerto Palenque to I can't speak French, so I'm not going to try that one. Anyways, 130 miles an hour is the winds on this storm. Pressure down to 960. We finally got some planes in there today, and they revealed quite a few fun facts about Beryl. So, first of all, when this thing became a tropical storm, it was the second furthest east tropical storm this early on record. And so that was and still is held by Brett, but it's behind Brett in terms of the furthest east tropical storm this early in the year. As a hurricane, it's the furthest east hurricane this early in the year. It was back in 1933 that there was a hurricane anywhere near where Beryl became a hurricane at. And when this system became a major hurricane earlier today, it was the first major hurricane east of the Lesser Antilles on record this early in the year. Again, and it's the third earliest major hurricane on record behind Alma in June 8th, 1966, and Audrey on June 27th, 1957. It was also, as it became a Category 4 earlier this afternoon, it became the strongest June hurricane on record. Yeah, sure, it's the last day of June. That record was held by Audrey's 125 miles per hour, and it became the earliest Category 4 hurricane on record, the first storm ever to reach Category 4 strength in the first 6 months of the calendar year. The record was held by Dennis in 2005. And in a lot of ways, these two systems, Beryl and then Invest 96L, are going to mirror Dennis and Emily of 2005. Dennis and Emily were known for being two hurricanes in the Caribbean Sea in the early portion of July, which is highly unusual for it to occur that early in the year. And yet we're going to be on par with that here shortly. And it's not a coincidence that two of the biggest years of hurricane formation are on your screen right now that Beryl has just beat. 1933, well known for being a devastating year for tropical cyclones. In 2005, of course, everybody remembers 2005, and Beryl just beat records from both of those years. If that doesn't give you chills, I don't know what does. Let's move on to the impacts associated with Beryl. Please note that the Weather Prediction Center graphic for this storm only goes out through 3 days, mainly due to interactions from 96L that are going to occur over these islands as well. Particularly, again, as I'll show you at the end of the video, 96L is expected to go slightly to the north, so Barbados, St. Vincent, and St. Lucia need to be watching 96L in a particular way, but also we don't really know exactly where its track is going to go, so Jamaica, Haiti, and the Dominican Republic, we're kind of unsure. Again, 4 to 6, isolated 10 in those areas, particularly in the Grenadine Islands, and that's where our main rainfall impacts are expected with Beryl. And moving on to the winds, again, 100% chance of winds for many tropical storm force winds for many of the islands, but still a solid 60% chance over the island of Jamaica. And then as we head into the Yucatan Peninsula and Belize, we're looking at winds earliest reasonably arriving Thursday morning. So again, like I've been saying, this is something we'll be talking about for the next week, more or less. And so again, those areas need to be watching this system very carefully. The good news is that the system will weaken with time. I didn't mention that earlier, but we'll get some shear over the system. So by the time it's about due south of Hispaniola, some shear will go over the system, and that'll cause it to begin to weaken in a good way. The wind field might expand, which wouldn't be great, but it will begin to weaken, so we won't be dealing with a powerful Category 4, but still a devastating and impactful Category 2 or 3 hurricane, maybe even 1 if we're lucky. Invest 96L doesn't look beautiful on the satellite presentation. That's to be expected. It's early stage Invest, 40% chance of formation within the next 48 hours, 70% within the next 7 days. And again, we're looking at most 6 inches at this point in time. And again, it's a little hard to tell. I'm putting the winds at 60. I'm keeping that below hurricane strength for now. Again, until the models get better resolution on this system, some of the models are bringing this thing into major hurricane territory like Beryl. So just something to watch. Again, the Lesser Antilles need to be watching this one very, very carefully, particularly the islands that are currently getting hit or will have gotten hit by Beryl, and the islands even to the north of where 96L or where Beryl will go. Here is a map that I kind of did. This is using the GFS model. This is simply one model, so this is not the end all be all. This is not exactly what's going to happen word for word. TD3, of course, you see in blue, in the kind of darker blue, making its way into Mexico. And again, by the time we get to the darker red, purple numbers, and particularly when we get to those yellow numbers, that's when we really start to get concerned for heavy flooding. And so again, our friend Beryl, going across the Lesser Antilles, in particular the Grenadine Islands, near Jamaica, and then over the Yucatan Peninsula. On this model, it keeps it relatively strong because it all kind of grazes the Yucatan, and then up, and it almost parallels. And this has been a very concerning theme. Again, this is about 7 to 8 days out, so there's still a lot to be deciphered here. But it parallels this Mexico-Texas coast, which would not be good news. So again, we'll continue to monitor that. We'll know more by the middle of the week. Invest 96L located in or identified by the kind of neon light blue, whatever you want to call that color. Again, going over or near Barbados, just to the north of where Beryl is tracking, perhaps even hitting Hispaniola, and then moving on to Cuba. And some models bring this thing into Florida. So Florida, you guys aren't out of the picture yet. And as you would expect, with, as I mentioned multiple times, an active hurricane season coming our way, we need to be on high alert throughout the United States and all hurricane prone areas. That's all for now. Chris Dixon, InfoWeather Media.